Good morning. On the eve of another national lockdown and another period of uncertainty for the events and exhibitions industry, I'm joined by the CEO of the body responsible for representing the industry and its needs and demands to UK government at this time, a task which at times has seemed like an impossible one. I'm Dan Assor, and this is BTE Media live and socially distant from the disruptive live studios in Waterloo. Good morning and welcome, Chris Skeith, CEO of Association of Industry Organisers.
Good morning, Dan. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you today?
Oh, it's all right. Another day, another dollar. So, yeah.
Thank you so much for taking some time out of your busy schedule to join us today. I appreciate that you've got quite a bit on your plate at the moment. Chris, we've got quite a lot to talk about. It'd be great for our listeners, viewers, that aren't aware, if you can just give us a bit more about your role and explain a bit more about the AEO.
Of course, no problem at all. So I'm Chris Skeith. I've been in the events industry for almost 25 years. I started off working with an audit company, ABC, looking at trade, exhibition and consumer exhibition auditing, which is a great intro to the sector, to which I fell in love with. And then I've had the privilege of setting up Assor for the Supplier Association back in 2008. I then had the pleasure of running the Venue Association, AEV, for 4 years. And then 6 years ago, started running the AEO, the Association of Event Organisers. So with that collaboration of AEO, AEV and Assor, we come together under the umbrella of something called EIA, the Events Industry Alliance. And as associations, we represent the £11 billion trade and consumer show sector and those kind of events that happen in the bigger exhibition centres, such as the NEC, the SEC up in Glasgow, built by the suppliers, such as your Freelands, your GESs, those kind of people. So AEO represents 86 organisers of events, organising some 1,100, used to organise some 1,100 in the UK, supporting 180,000 businesses who use that medium to do trade. And what's also interesting is about half of our members have an international portfolio. So as you know, the UK industry leads the world. And then from their UK offices, they run around 1,000 events around the world that bring in really important turnover into the UK economy. So it's just over £2.1 billion worth of turnover into the UK economy, which interestingly would make them the 8th largest service exporter if you looked at the ONS stats from 2016 for service exports. So as a sector, we're pretty big and significant, and business events is a big part of it. A couple of other roles I've got very quickly. I'm Vice Chair and Treasurer of the BVEP, the Business Visits and Events Partnership, so a collaboration across the number of associations over in the event sector, so from the MIA to ICA to all those kind of guys, and we represent ourselves on the events industry board run by the DCMS. And then finally, I've got a bit of an international bit of work where I chair the associations committee for UFI, the Global Associations for the Exhibition Industry, and with that I sit on their executive board. So I'm very fortunate to have a view of more associations in the UK event market, but also the global view by working with associations across the world with UFI. So that's a little bit of a snippet of the world that I live in.
So quite a few roles that you hold there, and quite obviously important roles, both before the pandemic and obviously currently at the moment. Obviously want to talk about the industry at this time, Chris, because that's what our viewers are, I guess, most interested in. A lot of them would have either left roles or still be in roles and quite fearful of what's happening at the moment. Why do you feel that there's been such little acknowledgement by the government of the industry that you represent?
So I think if we back the truck up until the beginning of the year, as a sector, we're quite a sleeping giant. And there's a brilliant little video that Natasha from ExpoCast did that tried to describe to your friend what it was you did for a living. I'm sure you've seen it. Yeah. It was brilliant. So as a sector, we've never had the need really to represent ourselves to government. For the 15 or so years I've been involved in the public affairs side, our asks of the government are very light. So therefore our demands have been light touch. And I'd probably say probably 5% of my time was spent looking at public affairs. And we had a home within DCMS, which was fit for purpose. our objectives were historically up until about 18 months ago, were very much leave us to get on with it. Don't put barriers in our way. But over the last sort of 18 months to 2 years, we've been trying to up that ante just with a view to try and get people government to support more, whether it be soft support, whether it be using events to drive the economic benefit within the industrial sectors that are important to them, get involved in the speaker conference programs, use events as part of that medium for their message. If you've got a health story, get involved in some consumer health events, those kind of things. So we're very much seeking more soft support, and we're beginning to break down those barriers, which has been pretty good. But as a sector, we're fairly complex. Our needs were quite light touch, and we were a little bit of a sleeping giant. So that's where we started from. However, in the last 7 months, we have, interesting, one of our objectives from Darren Johnson, who was the chair of AEO, was to increase our recognition within government. And boy, oh boy, I mean, I've spent 105% of my time now doing public affairs, and we have been speaking to ministers, secretary of states, members of the opposition, select committee chairs, vice chairs, senior public advisors, right the way through to number 10 and the cabinet office. So I think, ironically, whilst we are in a state of not trading, awareness of the sector has never been higher, and engagement in the industry has never been higher. But so, backing up a few months ago, our needs were little, but in a very short space of time, we've actually got those conversations going.
Sure. And you made a remark there that you said approximately 5% of your time, or maybe the industry association's time before the pandemic, was spent maybe actively lobbying government. Yes. In hindsight, do you think that was a mistake, and maybe that there was too much little time spent?
Yeah, obviously, but one of the power of any association, and for me, an association represents its members. Sure. So everything you do is all about them, and it's not about us. It's not about AO. It's not about the members. Sure. It's all about the members, and the members, create your path. They create what working groups you do, what best practice you set. So, but so therefore you spend your limited time and resource on their needs. And, and hindsight's a wonderful thing. I mean, who'd have thought that, sure. Through recessions, events are normally the ones that come through really strong, as an example. But I think you could look back and you could go, we should have done more. However, you could look forward and go, actually, we've got a great platform now of understanding. And what's been brilliant in the last 6 months is we've been able to present the economic case, so how trade and consumer shows drive economic growth, and then going forward, how we can help in Brexit, how we can help kickstart the economy. We've proved the safety case, so we've created government-approved guidance, actually had a hand on the pen in writing that guidance and delivered pilots that have proved that safety case. And then we've demonstrated to government how significant and important the sector is to other countries' economies, so Germany, France, how they see exhibitions as an integral part of their economic construction and dynamic, and perhaps highlight how the UK government haven't had that opportunity and embraced it so much. So going forward, there's a great opportunity to do it. So we've certainly created a platform for exchange that we haven't needed in the past, but going forward, we can use that as some good foundations going forward.
Sure. And you've obviously said at the beginning that you've spoken to senior government directly, and I know that I think only today and tomorrow you're going to be speaking to BASE, the Department of Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy, and Oliver Dowden. Can you give our viewers an insight as to what happens at those meetings, the sort of format, and really how much power you have to influence when you're in front of them?
Sure. I mean, it depends very much on their agenda, but we have so many different points. We are able to relay our lobbying message depending on the conversation at the time. So, for example, if you were looking at the differences between economic growth, we would cite in examples of international competitiveness. So, to be honest, actually, a brilliant example is the inconsistency of applications. So you have sectors that were open before in COVID secure venues running to social distance capacity. So you end up with the Albert Hall or the Palladium having events for thousands of people. So, those are great opportunities to demonstrate that there is a difference. So, so in the past, we've highlighted those elements. So look, we've got this inconsistency. We've proved we're safe. We've got government-approved guidance that say you're letting this happen within a theatre. Why won't you let this happen in this way? So I hate the word pivot, but we pivot our lobbying message to suit whatever the current affairs is at the time. And another example of that would be, for example, with the boat show. We were able to demonstrate the impact to people, to stakeholders, to freelancers. So, when they couldn't get their license to run the big boat show, they ran the boat show B, or trying to run the boat show B. So we got case studies from exhibitors on how intrinsically important that event was to them. So, one particular exhibitor, 20% of their trade happened at that one show over those days of the show. Because that didn't happen, a direct result is they had redundancies. That not only did that affect people based in Hampshire, where their business was based, but also the 1,400 supply chain businesses that go to making their product. So we've done other case studies in relation to other events. So we use the airtime we have with those people to talk about the current affairs topics at the time, but they're always going back to our economic ability, our driving of economic growth, our impact on exhibitors, and then our impact on the supply chain. Again, another slight, sorry, there are so many examples over the last 7 months and so many meetings. I'm into the realms of over 300 of these, so it's hard to pick any one in particular. But another one would be looking at the skills gap. We have people who are being made unemployed from certain venues at the moment that's their only job. It's the only thing that they've got. They're now reaching the mature end of their career, and will they get another job or not? You just don't know. But the skills they've got, the relationships they've got, the knowledge they've got. So we've pushed really hard about the need to protect those skills and that talent that we have in our industry. That when ultimately we will get to manage this pandemic and future challenges that we face, we need them so intrinsically. So, highlighting the devastation to the job market, highlighting the impact on people's lives, whether they be individuals or whether they be company directors, or whether they be freelancers. So the messages are very, very different, but fundamentally we're always drawing back to, the three core messages at the moment are, crisis support, reopen, and recovery. So we always try to pivot back onto sort of at least one or two of those points, but the message depends on the story of the hour.
Sure. And you mentioned the boat show, you mentioned theatres and the Royal Albert Hall. The other week there was a book signing by Arsene Wenger, which you would have seen. I think there was around 1,000 people in there. And I know just from the comments on social media, there was a lot of frustration from other parts of the event industry, namely trade shows, who are frustrated that was allowed to happen. And yet we don't have a roadmap to opening for the trade show industry. Events are a broad church, right? How does an organisation, or how are you able to represent such a broad set of events, if you like, within the industry?
So I think you either try and look at everything. So BPEP and things like One Industry, One Voice are doing a great job of representing overall. And then and the way that we've worked with government before, and I mean, I know we've got 84 billion at the minute. If you include weddings, it's down to 70 billion. If you're looking at broader events, if you look at business events, it's about 40 billion. So I've always used it as a door opener. We are a significant sector of many parts, of many specialisms, and here's where I can offer some specialist support and help. So if you're looking at business events, if you're looking at meetings, conferences, and trade and consumer shows, we're working even more closely with the NIA at the moment, because if you look at the way the government have defined us under business events, so we work very closely with those. And one of the reasons why AEO, AV, and Assor are so successful is you've actually got a relatively small community of people that have a massive impact over those 1,100 events that operate in a very similar way. So therefore, you're able to create communities and subgroups. So ultimately, I wouldn't want to comment on how you could run a festival or how you could run a theatre performance. But what I can do is bring the community of experts together to talk it through. So I think we always talk about the door openers. We're an industry of many parts. that this is the part of which we're specialists, and ultimately our aim is to support the opening of everything. But in order to open everything, we can cite example of good practice.
Yeah.
The book launch, they're able to do it. Oh, by the way,
yeah,
we did All Secure Expo. We demonstrated our ability to do it in a safe way with measures that look very familiar to other parts of the sector. Now, how can we talk about getting our bit open? So that's the flow. So rather than, I absolutely get everybody's angst, and if I wasn't representing a sector, if I didn't have to maintain my relationships with government officials, I would probably be, joining that rallying cry. However, I can use that to our advantage, but look at it as a constructive mechanism. And I think for every angry comment, there's also another comment from other people there going, "No, we should applaud those guys. That's great that they got going. How can we use that to help ourselves?"
Sure, I think it's possibly more frustration than anger, but I get the point. I mean, so you don't think there's a case for decoupling the types of events and then having different messages for each part of the industry?
I liken either the industry or the activities to a bit like an American football team, right? So you've got offense, you've got defense, you've got kickers, and then depending on the message, you bring in the right team. So we have from the start of this asked our members what they wanted, which represent 80% of the sector, and they wanted a laser-like focus targeting directly the influencers in government, with the policymakers and the influencers. So that's exactly what we've done. I said I won't be managing social media. I won't be managing those. We've had public affairs guidance from a number of different professional public affairs businesses. We've had PR guidance from specialist PR people. So we have got a line of attack, but we wouldn't throw any other sector under the bus in that line of attack. We would take that approach for the benefit of all. And you could argue, before my time, the AO was the Association of Exhibition Organisers. It's now the Association of Event Organisers. But my line to government, and when you look at the research that we have, the activities our members are, I mean, you could argue a trade or a consumer show is actually an event. So you could argue over the last 6 months I've actually said with the Association of Exhibition Organisers again, because this is where my specialist skill lies, this is where my data points lie. But it's never at the to exclude any other sector. But if one can open, then that's going to help with the call to get other people to open. We can learn from their best practice. And interestingly, as a result of the pilot that we had, I'm now engaging with the head of Public Health England in terms of how other sectors can learn from the brilliant way that we put on events, because we're in the business of managing risk. We're in the business of bringing communities together in a safe way. So as a result of the pilot, we're now engaging with the head of Public Health England in terms of how those lessons and learnings can be shared across other sectors, which is pretty cool. And again, that's an opportunity to demonstrate how brilliant we are as a sector at bringing people together in a safe manner. So I think we all have a part to play. In summary, I think everybody's part can be really positive. But you've got to concentrate on where your specialisms are, which is what I've been doing. You can't be all things to all people. And as I say, like the American football team, you're picking the right team at the minute. And if you have a bunch of people that want to take some more physical, positive action, that's great. That helps raise the awareness and the noise about the case. If you've got other people that want to do some really creative marketing communications, that's super cool as well. But the biggest thing that we found is that you can't do everything yourself, right? So you've got to rely on everybody else. The way the whole industry, regardless of which bit, talking to their local MPs, creating that noise within Parliament has just been phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. And I'm not going to suggest it's the power of the people or anything, but actually the way that everybody has unified around this desire to open safely has been incredible, and hopefully a legacy of this pandemic.
So, and we'll come on and talk about that. So, and there's a question just come in, and it's something I was going to reference. Obviously, some parts of the rest of Europe and the rest of the world have either opened, or at least they have a roadmap to opening, but yet we don't in the UK. Why do you think that is?
So, I think when we started, there was a roadmap. was the traffic light thing that they came out with. And unfortunately,
Sure.
in that roadmap, we were last out. First to shut, last to open. And then throughout that journey, we're fighting science. We're fighting an increasing infection rate. So if you're sitting in, I'm not defending them by any stretch of the imagination, but we are led to believe from the conversations that we've had, the logic is, why would you open a sector up that increases risk when we're trying to manage that risk within there? So that's probably why we didn't get to there. But up to 5 weeks ago, we had a go date. We had a go date. We proved the safety case, we proved the economic case, we proved the international competitive case, we proved the power that we have as a sector to drive economic growth. Excuse me. So we had all those things up until 5 weeks ago. Now, obviously, that plan's been taken away. If anybody, we are obviously, that's our primary objective, is to get that reopening side of things. And I see lockdown as a bit of an opportunity. So if you've made poor decisions and not understood how safe it is that we can open, if you've let other sectors open with similar or probably less control measures that we want to and have demonstrated we could do, isn't that a cool time to have that same ground zero level point? So why don't we, as we get out of lockdown, why don't we allow all sectors to reopen in the tier system? And look, these are the kind of control measures that we can go. So I'm, for one, have been very busy over the last 72 odd hours, banging that drum to say, look, we've got a huge opportunity. So nobody's lost any face. You made the right decisions at the right time based on the information that you had. Now we're at ground zero, and that we can operate safely. We've proven we can operate safely. You need the economic recovery to happen, and look, this is what we can do. Isn't it a great idea to do it? So that's very much what we're focusing on here. Sorry to Dan, just one second. But if you look at internationally, we're also using the examples of Germany. So at the start, here's your furlough scheme to the end of the year if you need it or not. Here's how we reopen. So you're not organised gatherings. Sorry, you're not mass gatherings. You're organised gatherings, and therefore you open in September on this level. In October, full. The caravan show in Dusseldorf, 107,000 people, no cases of COVID. So again, we're using those examples about how you can safely reopen. Now, all around the world, everybody is still challenged, and it isn't as rosy as it looks. So Germany are currently shut for a month, and they're currently lobbying to be classified as sort of they're currently in as non-essential retail, or our equivalent, and they're fighting to be classified as business, so separate, so it could still operate. So they've unfortunately had a shutdown, but the difference between the UK and Germany is that there is a plan and there is a recovery. So we're constantly putting suggestions about how that reopen and that recovery piece can be put forward.
Sure. And talking about recovery, obviously Project Recovery is Events Industry Alliance initiative. And there are lots of initiatives going on, lots of hashtags. We make events, hashtag Project Recovery. Are they more than just a hashtag? What concrete results do you think we can expect from them?
I think there's an element, but for us, our focus with Project Confidence, it was tailored towards our members' customers. So ultimately, you've got to have a slightly different conversation than, I'm really sorry, initially it was a race to postpone, then it was a race to, a race to reschedule, then it was a race to postpone, and then most likely another race to postpone. So you needed something else to talk about. So our focus with Project Recovery, which was way back in June, I believe we started that, was to sort of give our members some collateral they could use with their customers to remind them about how effective face-to-face marketing is, what a great return on their investment they're getting from taking part in the events. So that was our focus point. And then there have been quite a few other initiatives that we list on our website. So should our members decide they want to take part and contribute, some of them are physical, some of them are more social marketing stuff. So it depends on what they want to do. Tangible benefits, our members have found it useful to talk to their customers to keep the conversations going. You may have noticed a distinct change. So it's hard to keep confidence going when a go date has gone away. So it's now known as Project Recovery in a short space of time. taken a slightly different line just to sort of try and keep the focus on needing to get back. But going forward, I think we're going to have to work really closely with our customers to make sure that they are reminded about the value of doing face-to-face engagement. And interesting, we'll have some news stories, won't we? I mean, this isn't as cool as being in a studio together. That would be much nicer, and certainly as an industry, in the live events industry, we're missing meeting each other. But you can certainly do things virtually. But that serendipity of meeting all the other benefits that you get face to face. So we will extend to reminding people about those softer benefits as well as the harder economic benefits of doing live. And I think any noise is good noise. And back to the American football team, it depends. You pick the team you need at the time, and if we all support everything, that's going to be great.
Sure. Thank you. And in terms of the future, what do you think? I know this is a big question to answer, and I'm going to ask you some specifics. What do you think the long-term effects are going to be for our industry in the UK?
Long term, I think they're good.
Yeah.
There's been various different pieces of research which tend to be out of date in the second week they're done. But UFI did some research of 9,000 exhibitors, and 71% of them wanted to come back. That was a while ago now. But I think the long term, face-to-face works. With the oldest medium, we started back in the markets. Post-war, we set up the Messer halls, or the Messer halls were set up to service and drive local economic growth. So, I think looking at virtual is brilliant, and digital is brilliant. It's very complementary. When I started back at AO back 15 years ago with the associations. The then CEO said that the future is live, not digital, and it's still quite a true message. We still want to meet. We're still, we're upset that we're going to have our liberties removed somewhat for a short period of time with lockdown. And business is the same. You can maintain a business, but can you really grow a business without live? So I think the longer term is good. I think there will be a recovery road. We're not going to go back to what we had before, and I think our propositions are going to be even stronger. There's always a little bit of FOMO in relation to a rebook. There's always a little bit, being an ex-auditor, it's all about the quality and not the quantity, all that kind of things. But I think now with the digital revolution that we've been somewhat forced upon us, we're going to be able to demonstrate so many more touch points and value prop and other things, So by way of example, within AEO, we're having such an international membership with touch points across the world. It's been really hard to join those dots. However, a carefully timed Zoom call, you can get the senior vice president of Informa in Hong Kong sharing what's happening there, along with the VP in the US about what's happening there, blended with Europe. So we're able to bring a global community together quickly and easily, but that can now complement some of the other work that we're doing. So I think the future, we'll have to be a bit smarter. I think there's some skills gaps that we need to plug and develop, whether it be in marketing or whether it be in sales, about this omni-channel approach. But I think we've got it's still a significant platform that will resurge and come back. There will be a lead time to do that.
And how impressive have you been with the industry response and its take up of technology and pivoting to virtual? Dare I say, use that phrase?
Yeah, I mean they have been amazing. Nobody's got a silver bullet. We have a technology group that we've had for a number of years, which has gone into overdrive. So as this pandemic's come along, our ops groups, needless to say, meeting almost hourly at the beginning to get all secure dealt with. Now they've sort of moved on to more progressive manners, looking at skills and talent and how we can make sure we've got the scale to come back. But the technology group's another example where. Again, they were looking about integrating different technologies a few years ago. Now they're very much looking at digital solutions, but nobody's got the answer yet. But in terms of how the industry has reacted, they're coming. We're not competitors, right? We're a group in the organizer community. We're trying to serve best practice. So we had a meeting of a socially distanced and legally number of meeting over at the BDC with 20 CEOs across the membership, talking about how they're looking at digital, how their products and services are evolving. The downside is, even though that's going really well, and that'll be a great platform going forward, it's still not the same revenue that you get from a face-to-face. So it's still it's not an alternative, but it will become very complementary. But the fact that the industry, our working groups have never been busier. I mean, the team at the AO have run ragged, delivering all the different working groups. So that's been great to see. But we've always been looking at it. It feels like running a bit of a family, the AO. We come together to celebrate with rewards. We come together to learn at the conference, and then we come together to do business better with the working groups. And that engagement level, ironically, was my sole objective this year, was to raise engagement throughout the organisations and across the organisations. And I sort of wish we hadn't, because it's for all the wrong reasons, but we've actually had more engagement and more than we've ever had before. So, and digital's that way, and so they're coming together to share how they've done that through these different groups. So, which is great.
So, Chris, if I had to push you, Q1, 2, 3, or 4, when's the industry going to open again?
I think, do you know what? Things change on a minute-by-minute basis. I could say,
as they stand now.
As they stand now, I think that it depends. You look at it, it's complex, right? You could look at a scenario where I'm under so many NDAs. I find it very, very difficult. But we are pushing for safely and as quickly as possible. And regardless of the date, which will be good for some people and not good for others, we need the date, so then we can start to build our confidence with our customers around that. So whether it's the 1st of December, the 1st of January, the 1st of February, the 1st of March, you've read as much as I have in terms of where some organisers are pinning their hopes. But our objective is to get us open as quickly and as safe in a safer manner as we can, and get that date as quickly as we can, because it's going to take a while. We always talked about a 12-week lead time. That was to bring back a postponed event. We're really looking at 6 months to work with our customers, our exhibitors, to get them to feel comfortable investing in it. And there's other things that we're working on that will help that customer confidence. So we have approached government to get heavily involved in mass testing. I'm under an NDA, so I can't say any more. But we're having positive, constructive conversations. We've also approached government about insurance to protect the customers, the supply chain, for everybody as well. And again, those conversations are going well. Again, I can't talk too much about them, but you need to help. We need to step back and not think about the organiser, the venue, the supplier here. We need to think about our customer and how we can make sure that they want to come back with us, because clearly we want to come back.
Yeah, it gives them confidence. It's all about instilling confidence, as you said, not just in ourselves, but also in the exhibitors and customers. And I just want to sort of move on to a couple of other things. I'm just conscious of time. The exhibition industry or event industry has done a great job over the years in terms of raising the profile of or the issue of gender, right? Gender balance and potential bias within the industry. And if you only have to look at the AEO board, the council, and some of the main exhibition organisers, lots of female faces. What about ethnic minority representation across the board?
I think that clearly we, again, as well as the pandemic, there have been some other quite seismic shifts in terms of public opinion, and gender's always been one for a little while, and ethnicity is another. And again, like I said at the start of this call, from an AEO perspective, we listen to our members and deliver what they want. So fortunately, or whatever, we have created a new group looking at diversity inclusion. One thing we did with gender, interestingly, when I started, is we our salary survey, we gave a male-female split of salary early, before you had to legally for businesses of a certain size. And the other thing we did is we started to monitor our working groups, our speaker lineups, our proportion of people on the board, and we just started to monitor it. And it's funny, if you start to monitor things, you start to, I don't know if it's conscious bias or unconscious bias or bias of biases or whatever these wonderful names for these different approaches are. But if you start to look at something, then things start to change, and whether that's subconsciously or not. So, and we find ourselves now in a place where Emma Barrett from the board, she's Vice President of Women's Events Industry, the global initiative over there, and we have a new diversity and inclusion. So I think we've got a lot to do, but equally our talent group is looking. Before pandemic, it was all about trying to find new talent to come into the industry. It was trying
Sure.
to we felt we were losing skills at the top end, and people weren't seeing it necessarily as a complete career choice. So they were already looking at where perhaps could you target key elements of society to come into the sector. So if you're then looking at this from a lens of what could we do differently, that's a great opportunity to sort of try and increase and share things through. So I've not lifted my head from public affairs since February. However, a couple of months ago, this is very ably led by Sarah Scott, our head of events, but I've kept popping my head up to look and see how the diversity inclusion work has been going, and I found it fascinating and really interesting, and I think it's something we need to address. And fortunately, we're taking those steps towards that by the creation of that new group. So, but I think it's only right and proper that we look at stuff and it's evolving. It's changing all the time.
Thank you. I'd like to just move on to the AO Excellence Awards. They're obviously taking place virtually this year on the 4th of December, I believe.
Yes, that's correct.
And I think you were planning yesterday. I saw an image somewhere on social media that you were meeting one of the hosts. Can you tell us a bit about what we can expect this year?
You can. So ultimately it's the award to win. We were very fortunate to have a stable number of entries way back at the height of the pandemic. So we were very grateful for the members who found the time in the middle of this crazy start to this pandemic. They didn't know quite what to do, but they got their entries in. I have 86 judges, so we employ a third-party judging company to do the judging for us. So they're all above board. All the judges in the midst of lockdown did all the judging. We sold 86% of the sponsorship, and we were holding out for our June date. But in March, we pushed it back to December, thinking this will be great. So hence me not answering the question about what a good go date is. Absolutely pointless because I don't know. But we thought we could run it. And then, to be honest, we've had quite a lot of we had a lot of thought about this. We've spoken to the board and the event working group because a number of people who have entered those awards probably aren't in that business anymore. Sure. Some of the people on the shortlist companies may not exist anymore. So do you forget about it? Or do you celebrate? Do you try and recreate what was the awards live? And we felt, actually, do you know what? It's right and proper that we acknowledge and respect the hard work that everybody putting in the entries. We acknowledge and respect that we did have that brilliant success before the pandemic. So it was only right and proper that we recognise that in the awards itself. So it won't be, sort of a celebration as such, because we are, you've got to be representative of how people are, and there's a lot of people out there who are really struggling, and a lot of businesses that are struggling. So you don't want to be out of kilter with that. So it will be respectful. It will be about an hour long. It will be a pre-record, but we haven't skimped. We're still got Dara O'Brien as the host. So I have had privilege of seeing the opening and closing set, which is quite appropriate. We're trying to, again, not trying to recreate something you can't recreate. Sure. Everybody wants to get together for a celebration, but we're hopefully putting in a few little twists and turns and a little bit of engagement on the day. So we're screening at a particular time. People can register via info@aeo.org.uk to get their code to look at it all. Sure. And we're delivering awards in a different ways, but it'll be a pre-record broadcast in a respectful way, because we don't want to be out of kilter. And interesting feedback from people who have been, that's really good. So I know one company who, in their renegotiation of some contracts with some suppliers, have got 120 bottles of champagne that they got. So up to last week, they were planning to have the office together and celebrate in the office. Now they're going to be posting those bottles of champagne out to their teams, who will watch them at home, and they'll watch it all in the Zoom call. So people will be celebrating in their own way, in an appropriate way. But the feedback has been, everybody's there going, do you know what? It's just what we need. We're coming up to the end of the year that we'd like to forget. This gives us a time to stop and have a bit of a point in time to reflect on how great we were as an industry, and then look forward at greater times to come.
We look forward to attending it. Just a few final questions. Do you feel the role of the association will change once the pandemic is over?
Yeah, it changes all the time. It's
Yeah,
so different to when I started 6 years ago. Between me and you, I don't think there's anybody else listening, isn't there? I really don't enjoy public affairs. It was the bit of the job I really didn't enjoy.
right.
But you play the role you need to play.
Sure.
I can't wait to get back to leading a global association, supporting our members in many different ways. But one of the things that I hope will carry on is the unity and the collaboration.
Sure.
I mean, it's been pretty heartfelt seeing how everybody has come together and has been supportive. The little messages from people, "Are you okay?" I mean, we're in unprecedented waters, and there's quite a responsibility sitting on our shoulders. So, I think, unfortunately, my 5% of public affairs will never go back to that level again. I think we've got a great opportunity with government. I think we need to get our act together. I think we need to create more data points. If we want to get serious with BEIS and DIT, we need to really prove the value of the sector, how exhibitors are getting the value from it. I mean, fortunately, we've invested in things like size and scale reports and economic impact reports, but the government needs data to support its cases.
Sure.
So I think there'll be a step change from the industry. I think we'll do more public affairs. I think, if anything, we've just looked at our plans for 2021, which we've got that flexibility to mix in face-to-face and digital as is appropriate. So, I think we'll carry on our evolution. But unfortunately, I need to find enough revenue to the point to move into public affairs, perhaps.
Chris, what's the biggest learning for yourself so far this year?
Biggest learning?
Yeah.
Wow. God. There have been so many. There's been so many, but ultimately, I'm not a very clever chap, right? I believe in being honest and listening to your customers, and then delivering what they want with all your heart. And but I think what I've probably learned is that it might be the most simple approach, but as long as you're good to yourself and good, and you'll go far. And what I have learned is the appreciation from people and the way that everybody has literally lost any competitive edge. The unity and the support has been extraordinary. And
Sure.
if that is a legacy of this, then it's been a good thing. And that may take a long time to come to terms with that, because it doesn't feel like a good thing at the minute.
And we are on the eve of another lockdown. Just finally, what message have you got for people that are listening in the industry?
I'm taking lockdown as an opportunity. We've got lockdown 2.0. So if they foolishly closed us at the beginning last time, and then it was a conscious decision to reopen, let's open us now. Let's look at building on the recovery piece in terms of the insurance and the testing, and work with our customers. But I think on the eve of lockdown, we have lots of opportunity to reset the dial. They now know who we are. They now understand what's happening. They now understand about lead times. So let's seize on that and make sure that we open from the get-go, whatever that date is. So I see it as a bit of an opportunity. Might even try going drink-free for lockdown. That might be bold. Don't know.
Chris Skeith, thank you very much for joining us today. And we wish you the best of luck with your ongoing discussions with government and obviously with the AO in general. So thank you for your time. Thanks for everyone for watching. And this is the LinkedIn Live event with our partners, Disruptive Live.